The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
Hi, I'm Karen Signoracci. For over 20 years, I've devoted my career to helping nonprofits reach their goals, increase their funding, broaden their donor base, and their community outreach. In addition, I work with my nonprofit clients to get the right people around the table to serve and execute the mission of the organization for its betterment and its service to the community. If you're considering starting a nonprofit, serve on a nonprofit board of directors, or are currently struggling to get your organization to the next level, please visit KarenSCS.com. That's KarenSCS.com. Let me know how I can help you increase your efficiency. One of the key components to a successful nonprofit are its board of directors. They are integral to the success by setting strategy, vision, and taking on fiduciary responsibility. Making key decisions is also part of this role. Please visit KarenSCS.com. That's KarenSCS.com, and let's speak about making your nonprofit and your vision. Hello, and welcome. This is The Big Picture on 103.9 Long Island News Radio. I am your host, Karen Signoracci. I have spent the last 20 years as a consultant to nonprofit organizations. I spent a lot of time with boards of directors, working on community outreach, raising money. You can visit my website, KarenSCS.com. And we have a lot to talk about today. I have Eileen Minogue from
The Book Fairies.
The Book Fairies. We're going to get into all of that. And, you know, listen, you could turn on the news and it's not always great. Whatever news channel you might listen to, it's not always positive. But today, we have a positive story for you. We have a positive story that has such history, has such legs. Everybody could relate to this. And I'm excited because I love the Book Fairies. I love what the Book Fairies does. I love the tangible part of it, but I also love the money part of it. And so we're going to get to all of that. And I also just do want to mention that I hope that everybody listening, whatever nugget you take out of this, just think about what you can do in your own community. Think about what you could do with your family. That's my hope for this show. So we always kick it off, Eileen, here with a little bit of food. So, I love to cook and I love my glass of red wine here and there. Anything that you've eaten recently or enjoyed that you want to share with everybody before we get to the money and the books?
Well, unlike you, I do not like to cook. So takeout is my favorite menu. And I'm from Massapequa, so I recently had All-American, and you can't go wrong with All-American.
Oh, you cannot?
No.
You cannot?
Best fries, in my opinion, best fries I've ever had in my life.
Best fries. It's a landmark.
I love it.
A lot of people, after sports games, after soccer, that would be the place to go.
Yep, you gotta go.
Well, listen, they're also a local business, and you supported them too. So there's another good thing.
Yeah, you gotta support local.
All right, so now we got our food out of the way. We got our mission of the show out of the way. Eileen, tell us, before we get to the Book Fairies, tell us how you got into the nonprofit world.
I am an accidental nonprofit leader.
You're not the first.
I know. I mean, I think, it's inbred in me. I'm the youngest of 9, and my mother was always like, help your neighbors and go out and help your neighbors. So I was always giving and doing. But some of my friends in the Massapequa area, there was a little girl that was in my daughter's Girl Scout troop that had cystic fibrosis, and they needed to go down to Duke for a double lung transplant. And I just did a fundraiser for them, and we raised, between the combined a number of different fundraisers, an amazing community that we have in Massapequa. We raised over $100,000. And then from there, I'm friends with some really incredible people in my community that I graduated with, and we started Billy Baldwin is a friend of mine, a great, amazing friend, and he started the Massapequa Community Fund, and I was president of that for a number of years, and we raised over $2 million and distributed over $2 million in 20 years to our community, all volunteer run. Nobody ever took a dollar. It just went right back into the community of Massapequa with scholarships and families with cancer that were in the community. We brought some of our teachers to the Harvard school for extra training, and it just really kind of snowballed from there.
So we just touched on the great work in Massapequa. I mean, let's shout out to all the wonderful people that are going to hear this, and that's going to resonate with them.
Yeah, and you talked about positive, like that's an army. That's a movement of people who just saw a need and they jumped in. And you talk about negative. There's so much negative going on in this world, and we hear so much of it that I love what you're doing here because you're focusing on the positive. And I think the more positive you're around, the more positive you want to do.
Well, thank you, Eileen. And you know that I had a short list of who I wanted to come on The Big Picture, and you know that you and the book Fairies were on that short list. So I'm glad, and I'm glad that we unearthed and we talked a little bit about Massapequa and how you how did you phrase it? Transplant or unconventional? Accidental. I'm sorry, accidental into the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
All right. So accidentally get into the nonprofit world, and now. The book Fairies.
Yeah. So I was previously an executive director and co-founder of another nonprofit here on Long Island, and I was transitioned out of that and was looking for the right fit. And Amy was looking for an executive director. Amy Zizlansky is our founder, and she was looking for an executive director, and 3 people gave her my name in like an hour. She's like, oh, I need to meet Eileen. And the rest is history. That's 4 years ago that I've been with the organization, and I love every minute of it. It's such a positive. We collect books from people who have them on their shelves and no longer need them. So they're so happy to get rid of their books because people really love, they'll hang on to them for years because they don't know what to do with them. And then we're getting them in the hands of our neighbors here who could really benefit from them. So it's a win-win for the people that we're working with. And I always say nobody's going to die if they don't get books over the weekend or something. So it's not like heart tugging and really, it's not the stress I felt in my other organization where I was dealing with terminally ill, children and adults or veterans that were sick, and it wore on me personally. And this is just all good, all fun, amazing volunteers. So it's a great fit for me.
There is something about opening a book, opening the spine of a book and seeing what's going to be in there. And many of us can go to our bookshelves and see a plethora of books, but the families and the kids that you're serving don't have that same experience.
Correct. What we do is we serve under-resourced communities here on Long Island in New York City. 1 in 4 New Yorkers is considered functionally illiterate. I mean, that's a big number.
That's
1 in 4 New Yorkers. These are our neighbors. And access to books is one of the biggest deterrents for them being able to achieve literacy. And so what we do is we source books from individuals who have them and no longer need them, and we sort them for age and condition, and then we redistribute them, or we like to say upcycle them, to our neighbors here on Long Island in New York City.
Upcycle. I like that. Yeah. So where are some of the places that are the upcycle recipients?
So Title I schools. We work with educators who are in the schools who don't have, I say this all the time, but I don't know many jobs where you go and you don't have the resources you need to fulfill your job and do your job properly, but teachers have to go out and buy books. So a lot of this students and schools that we serve don't have enough books in their classrooms, and there are actually some libraries that aren't even open in schools here locally. So we are working with schools, we're working with nonprofits, we're working with homeless shelters and, the Inn, the Mary Brennan Inn, and Rikers Island, prisons, and we're in the Long Island Railroad Center in some of the towns. We just coordinated with an organization called I'm going to forget the name of it. Sir Shave in Wyandanch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Keith, wonderful guy. I talked to him. I said, you're in the heart of the community. We want to create a culture of literacy. He said, how can I help? I said, let's put a bookshelf in your place of business. And he said, absolutely. And we did. And now when people come into his, barbershop, they can look at the books and take the books home because we're filling them up. He's like, we're like, give them out. Let's get the books into the homes. Most of the kids that we're serving here on Long Island, sad but true, they do not have books in their homes. So what we're trying to do is not only just fill the classroom libraries, but also, and the organizations that are working with these children, but also bring the books into the homes. Because studies show that if children, just the mere presence of books in their homes could be equal to 2 additional years of academic training. Just because they have the books in their homes, they'll pick them up, they're likely to pick them up, they're likely to flip through them, and hopefully learn how to read through having the books there.
So we covered where the books are going. How can people donate these books?
Yes, so we are located in Freeport. Our book bank is in Freeport, and we have book bins there. But people can donate books. They can do book drives for us. They can. We have individuals and companies that are remote drop sites. Habitat for Humanity has a remote drop site for us. Dairy Queen in Levittown, America's Best in Levittown. We have a number of different organizations that have remote drop sites for us. And you can go to our website at thebookfairies.org, and it's all on there. If you want to know how to donate your time, donate money, donate your books, it's a really sleek, we just redid our website, so it's all there.
All right, so thebookfairies.org. We're going to come back in a little bit, and we're going to hear more about the Book Fairies and what they're doing, how you can get involved. And think about it. Host a drive, donate a book, or donate some money. We'll be right back on The Big Picture. Welcome back. This is The Big Picture on Long Island News Radio 103.9. I am your host, Karen Signoracci. I am so thrilled that we're talking about books. We're talking about kids. We're talking about money. And I have Eileen Minogue from the Book Fairies here today. And we just covered the little history of the Book Fairies, some of the things that they're doing, how you can get involved. Eileen, give us the website one more time.
Thebookfairies.org.
Thebookfairies.org. But right now, I want you to tell us a little about, in your time as executive director, a moment where it all clicked, where you're like, it all came together, whether it was an event, a donor, an experience. When did it all come together?
I could tell you one of the most emotional times, and that really kind of was like when I said to myself, this is, it's powerful what we're doing. And when I first came to the organization, we didn't really have a lot of infrastructure, and we didn't have a lot of funding. And so we did a Guinness World Record attempt as attached to a fundraiser. And we are Guinness World Record holders. We are the longest line of books, which is over 3.81 miles long. In the interim, though, that was in the wine dance community. It was over 30,000 books. So we did it at La Francis Hardeman and JFK schools, which butt up against each other, and you don't have to go outside. And we laid out over 30,000 books in 3 hours. It was chaotic and crazy. And we thought we were going to have to pick them up. And the principals were like, no, leave them down, and the kids can come in the next day and they can just take any of the books, because the books were for them. Mm-hmm. And Amy Zaslansky, our founder, and I went the next day, and the kids were coming in. You would have thought it was Christmas. They were so excited. They were running around, taking books. They were picking them for their mother, their sister, their brother. And the two of us just looked at them, we were like crying. We were like, this is what it's all about. Kids love books. They need books. They want books. And we need to be here to get those books in their hands, because that was so palpable how much those books meant to them. And I knew we were doing a good thing. And as long as books are not equitable access to books, we will be here.
So the Guinness Book of World Record, the record here on Long Island for the longest
line of books.
Longest line of books.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know.
And how many people were involved that day?
That day there was about 40 or 50 people there that day. But prior to it, there's a lot. You have to give them basically your first child. There's a lot of dots to cross and T's to cross and I's to dot for them. And even afterwards, submitting all of the information, and you have to have like official rulers. It was a lot of work, but it was our first out of the box fundraiser for me with the company, and we raised over, I think it was $64,000, as through our incredible sponsors that helped us out with the event. And I knew that we had a good mission, and I knew that people would want to be a part of it, because what's more important? Can you imagine a home without books? Can you imagine a mother or father not being able to read to their child because they don't have the books?
Right.
It's a choice between food or a book. You're going food.
You're going food. Right. So that kind of tees us up to how can people get involved? What can they do? Because there's such an emotional charge with this. There really is, because everybody grows up, hopefully with the first book they got, or the first book they read, or their first book report, perhaps. How can people get involved?
Listen, everybody should want to get involved. Everybody should be concerned about this because it's impacting us all. It's $232 billion a year, are lost in healthcare wages because people can't read their discharge papers. We're all paying for it. But most important is the children are paying for it. So to get involved, you can volunteer, which it's all on our website. You can donate your books and you can donate your time and funding. We would not exist if we didn't have funding.
So I'm going to ask Eileen just to give us the website one more time.
Thebookfairies.org.
Thebookfairies.org. And is there anything going on right now in the next, the foreseeable future that you could use manpower for, people for?
We always need people in our warehouse, in the book bank. We wouldn't exist. We are a very small staff. We have 2 part-time, full-time and 3 part-time. So we exist on volunteers in our warehouse. So it's important. People can sign up there. Doing book drives is important. And, funding. We have a readathon every year. That's our biggest fundraiser during the month of May every year. And we're looking for people to participate in that, commit to reading for 30 minutes a day for 30 days, and asking your circle to donate and support you in your efforts.
So are you finding families doing that together, or adults, kids doing that? What would it take for someone to want the readathon to be, part of their daily life? 30 minutes for 30 days.
Yeah, it's not hard. And it's on the honor system. So we're not coming and we're not going to knock you over the head if if you don't do it. But it's a fun way for families to get involved. It's a fun way for groups to get involved. We have some of the key clubs that get active. Schools get involved. And I call it like a battle of the books. Some people coordinate it with doing a book drive. So they try to see how many books they can collect, plus how many they can fund in their efforts on the readathon. I equate it to like the hearts, jump for heart, jump rope for heart. I think it's a great opportunity. And throughout the month, we have authors that come in and do live readings, and the classes that we serve can push into those live readings, and they get to hear readings from some really incredible authors who are showing them, their books that they read all the time. And then they get to ask them questions through our chat. We ask them to ask questions, and they can hear their name and have the chat done that way.
Oh, terrific.
And we're always looking for sponsors for the readathon. We have some incredible sponsors that have always jumped in. PC Richard is phenomenal. Sereni and Associates, Target, Amazon. We have just incredible sponsors that really just wrap their arms around our organization. And quite frankly, they've helped us to grow because, as I said, when I only came in 4 years ago, and we really didn't have funding. And in that 5 years, we've been able to bring in these incredible sponsors that have lifted us up and enabled us to go from 1 part-time employee to 2 full-time and 3 part-time, and really expand. We now pay for our warehouse, our book bank, and we're looking to get a truck, hopefully, and larger space. So
what would you do with the truck?
That's one thing I would love to talk about is we don't have a truck. And so how do we move 600,000 books a year? We work with the special needs organizations that have vans in their program Without Walls. And they go and they collect these books and they bring the books, or they'll deliver them to a school that's getting the books. So that's an amazing partnership, but we can't, they don't go into the city. They don't go outside the 5, the Long Island into the 5 boroughs. So it would be able to expand our reach and hit more children, pick up more books, and really just hit more donors, more recipients, and even more volunteers. So it just enables us to grow.
So Eileen just mentioned the sponsors that help with the readathon, and kudos to those wonderful companies for getting behind this and saying, literacy is important, and our kids having books is important. But Eileen just outlined a great way. If someone's listening, they could get involved, is consider partnering with the Book Fairies on transportation, on a truck. And you can go to thebookfairies.org. You could find Eileen there and think about it. Think about that service you'd give to the community. You mentioned how people can get involved. You've mentioned partnerships. The key clubs, the service clubs. There are so many other nonprofits you partner with. Tell us about one of those relationships.
We work with so many of the nonprofits. It's mostly schools that we work with here, and of course our special needs organizations who provide the transportation. But there's so many of them. We work with Island Harvest and the food, like Feed Your Brain, Feed Your Belly.
Great line.
Yeah,
feed
right?
your brain, feed your belly.
Yeah, during the COVID, we didn't even stop during COVID because the teachers were desperate. So many of their students were home and had no books to do the work that they were required to do while they were in quarantine. So, we had so many people saying, well, they need food and they need housing. I said, absolutely. But if we don't get books in the hands of these kids, we're affecting their entire lives. Because if a child doesn't learn how to read by the time they're in third grade, they're 2/3 more likely to be on welfare, in jail, or worse. So we need to get these books into the hands. It's a community thing. It's like, that's why I say we all need to wrap our arms around it. If you think you're not affected by it, you are, because we're paying for it.
I mean, we covered a lot. I have Eileen Minogue from the book Fairies. Listen, get involved. This is it. This is a perfect way to get involved. Bookfairies.org. Think about financial support. They need a truck. Think about getting involved in the readathon. Eileen, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You're amazing.
You're going to maybe come back?
I would love it.
All right.
Anytime.
This is Karen Signoracci, The Big Picture. You're listening to 103.9 Long Island News Radio, and I look forward to our next show. And again, bookfairies.org. Check it out. Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or